The epic saga continues with a karate-fueled frenzy. Many hearts are invested in these beloved characters' fates, from the fans who've been there since it all began to the Netflix generation, from those we love to hate. Speaking of hate, we all know about John Kreese and the way he makes us furrow our brow and grit our teeth. Let's look into the lesser-known bits about him. First off, John Kreese grew up in conflict and strife. The childhood that this loathed character lived through was indeed a bleak one. He was born in the San Fernando Valley in 1946 to a mother who was often ill, with hard luck following him like a shadow. Kreese's mother continued to deteriorate until she took her own life in 1965. No other family member is ever mentioned. So at the tender age of 19, Kreese was left all alone in the world. Bruised and battered by the experience of having seen his mother live through such a difficult life, he was left entirely alone and had to take the heavy burden of raising himself. Moreover, with the stigma around mental health, his mother's actions continued to haunt him as he was regularly bullied and labeled an outcast by his very own peers. Deprived of a healthy environment at home, he also never found any solace in friendship and largely remained a loner. Left entirely to his own devices, Kreese found a job working at a diner. It was at this diner that Kreese first saw Betsy, later to become the only true love of his life. Their first encounter ensued when Betsy visited Kreese's workshop with her then boyfriend David. Second, Betsy's boyfriend gave Kreese the idea to join the army. Working at the diner, Kreese chanced upon various patronizing figures. One of these was a uniformed military officer who stopped by and made conversation with a group of jocks casually hanging about. One of these jocks was David, Betsy's boyfriend. The military officer praised the guys at a football game he'd seen them play. He insisted that it was precisely the athleticism and attitude required by the military. His view was that they all fit perfectly into the mold of the all-American figure who can achieve great success pursuing a career in the military. Most likely there to recruit young men for the cause, the officer handed out a pamphlet to David. David confidently took it from the officer's hand and agreed to consider joining the army. As soon as the officer left, David balled up and threw the pamphlet on the diner floor, carelessly. Kreese chanced upon the discarded piece of paper and was immediately intrigued by the possibility of having an opportunity to join. He snuck the pamphlet into his pocket as his employer scolded him. While Kreese was doing his job, he was tripped by David and fell to the floor. Kreese, being used to bullies, was once again humiliated and made the butt of a cruel joke. Betsy was the only one that afforded him a glance of pity and refrained from joining the others and ridiculing him. But there we have it. David had thrown away the pamphlet Kreese read to learn about military recruitment. In a way, he was led to his path by a bully who stood in his way and took great pleasure in seeing him trip. Third, the infamous no mercy tactic came from Kreese's military superior, Captain Turner. Kreese made it to the army and was shipped off to Vietnam. He immediately stood out as a risk taker. Due to this reputation, he was shortlisted by Captain Turner to go on a high-risk mission deep into the northern part of the country. Since Kreese had a say in choosing the people to go on the task, he picked Silver and Twig, his two close mates. Before the mission began, however, the crew had to train. After all, this was a mission that required a little extra from everyone selected. At this point, Captain Turner taught Kreese the art of Tang Soo Do for close-quarter combat. Turner had mastered Tang Soo Do under Master Kim Soo-young of South Korea. Now, though we know Kreese was a ruthless fighter, Captain Turner's student Kreese was someone who would often hesitate in landing fatal blows on his enemies. Turner, it turned out, was a harsh instructor. He was the first to angrily berate Kreese for paying mind to his humanity when fighting a rival. He taught that there was no room for hesitation in front of an enemy, no second thought, no hesitation, and no mercy was the lesson repeatedly grilled into Kreese. Here, we found the first mention of the phrase no mercy, the term that later came to define Kreese's dojo. Captain Turner was later shown absolutely no mercy when Kreese sent him to his death in the Cobra Pit. Kreese certainly learned well. Yikes! Fourth, Kreese knew greatness when he saw it. While teaching Cobra Kai dojo, Kreese had a good eye for picking pupils who had the potential to master it. Well, one such boy was a 12-year-old named Johnny Lawrence. This little boy, much like Kreese, didn't have a happy home life. Can we say Kreese felt for this poor boy and took him under his wing? We can't, because Kreese ruthlessly taught him that he simply wouldn't teach losers. And with this opening, he encouraged the boy to unlearn his previous ways and embrace the way of a bully. Even though he taught his students well, the underlying ideology behind the training always remained violent. While training students, Kreese could have easily participated in the World Karate Tournament. He was already the U.S. Army's karate champion from 1970 to 1972. He had ambitions in this field, but he didn't. He put it off because he maintained that his students demand his absolute focus, especially Johnny, who was the star student in his eyes. And so Kreese saw his students' greatness and gave them importance over his ambitions. Well, his sight for placing excellence was laser sharp as Cobra Kai won the All-Valley Karate Tournament 2 years years in a row, in 1982 and 1983. And fighting ferociously on Cobra Kai's behalf was Johnny, the very boy whose greatness was recognized by Kreese way before he began his training. Lastly, once his savior, the army turned him down when Kreese wanted to rejoin. We all know of the ways that Kreese exercised his power in Cobra Kai. He was nearly driven to exile after the All-Valley Karate Tournament in 1985. The Cobra Kai dojo was slammed with a lifetime ban because of Kreese, Silver, and Barnes. Well, once again, Kreese found himself shunned. It was much like his earlier years. Though he had achieved a lot through hard work earlier, he again had nothing to his name, not even his dojo. In a way, his entire identity was stripped from him. Kreese was driven into a corner by losing Cobra Kai for a second time. He tried to enlist in the army yet again, but was turned away as the military preferred younger recruits. Not only this, but it was also implied that the army was hesitant to give him another chance because he had psychological issues. He had quite a hard time during those years. Of course, some of us would say he had the years he deserved. Still, only the army had given him an identity when he had none as a youth. It's also where he met his lifelong friend Silver. Going back to it certainly makes it seem like Kreese wanted his old life back. Just as his rise to karate stardom and his sensei was self-made, so was his fall. Love him or hate him, Kreese was portrayed masterfully by the very talented Martin Kove. However, when the movie came out, Chuck Norris was a popular actor, and many said he'd refused to play Kreese when offered the role. Chuck Norris turning down the role of Sensei Kreese is only a rumor. Though the image continues to excite us, Chuck Norris was likely never in the running to play John Kreese. There just exists no proof to back it up. Mental Floss reports that Chuck Norris claims that he was never even offered the role. The movie would have conflicted with Norris's production schedule, but if we think about it, could we visualize Norris as the supremely disliked Kreese? Sure, Norris could have given him great competition. Still, the fact of the matter is that Kreese just doesn't coincide with the screen image of Norris. Norris was always the hero, on the side of justice, the bane of the bullies, while Kreese trained an entire army of bullies under his tutelage. He used his abilities to incite fear and bully the weak. Norris's characters actually live by a noble code of honor. Kreese, by that logic, is the exact opposite of Norris. But no love lost. We love Norris, and we certainly see him play many memorable characters. His impact doesn't lessen just because he didn't play Kreese. Norris started missing in action the same year The Karate Kid played in theaters. And that's a wrap for this video. Do you know any facts about Sensei Kreese that you would like to share? Do you think Chuck Norris would have made a good John Kreese? Make sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more videos like this. Goodbye for now, and see you in the next one.